What is up, everyone? This is Jeremy here, and today I'm going to be showing you the 3 things that your physical therapy clinic must be doing right now if you want to show up in ChatGPT, Google AI summaries, and every new AI search tool that people are using. Because guess what? This is what I think, and I think the data supports it too, but AI is already eating traditional SEO's lunch. And if you guys aren't trying to optimize your clinic for showing up in AI, then you're going to be missing the boat. Google's AI overview now appears in up to 40% of local queries, and ChatGPT's local search pulls from business websites 58% of the times is some of the data that we're getting. So this is not trendy, it's essential. And if your clinic isn't visible in AI, then chances are you're leaving leads on the table. It really is as simple as that. So in today's podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the 3 ways to ensure that your clinic shows up in AI. They are letting and making sure that the AI robots can crawl your website and your content. This is just like step number 1, a very simple thing. Number 2 is publishing Q&A style pages that are built for AI extraction. And number 3 is the technical SEO fundamentals that still move the needle. Again, like the traditional SEO stuff, it's actually still working quite well for AI. So that's really good news for people out there that are doing SEO. So by the end of this, what I want you to know is exactly what to ask your web team or your agency or whoever's doing your SEO to implement this so your clinic can show up inside of the AI answer boxes and not just buried on page 5 of Google or never showing up in any of these AI overviews. So the first one. Number 1, before we write a single blog post, before we build a single backlink, there's a little switch inside of your CMS, inside of where your website is hosted, that we need to make sure that we're turning on that allows for AIs to crawl your website. Okay, so if AI crawlers can't read your site, then you're not going to show up in ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Google's AI overviews. So this one honestly is pretty simple, and there's a couple different ways to check this, and I'm going to walk you through how to do that. But really, the easiest way is there's a setting inside of every CMS that allows for you to turn this on. So you can turn on if it's allowing LLMs to crawl your website. Chances are it's probably turned off. So this is why this is step 1, okay? Because if you don't have this, all of the other optimizations do not really matter. All right. So let me take a step back here, just in case I get this question all the time. So a CMS is where your website is hosted. This is not your DNS settings where all of your like A values and your, I won't even get into that. So your classic CMSs, right, again, are going to be Squarespace, is going to be WordPress, is going to be Webflow, is going to be HubSpot. That is a CMS. Your DNS settings are things like Google Domains, which is now Squarespace. You've got GoDaddy, Bluehost. Those are where your actual settings are, your DNS settings are. So we're talking about your CMS here, okay? And this is why like we build our websites. We build websites for Patch inside of Webflow for this reason, because they're the most progressive CMS right now for getting found. We used to build these on HubSpot, but Webflow actually makes the crawl, settings, sitemap, and SEO knobs like super, super simple. So if you're on Squarespace or WordPress, or you're paying somebody to manage your website, you need to make sure you go in and actually turn these settings on. All right. So if you don't know the basic settings, you go into your side of your CMS, and for example, like inside of Webflow, it's very easy. You go to project settings, you go to SEO, you make sure indexing is enabled, sitemap is enabled, and you're not blocking crawlers. Inside of WordPress, same sort of thing here. You go to settings, reading, uncheck, discourage search engines from indexing this site, then install an SEO plugin. There's Yoast, there's Rank Map to manage the sitemaps and the robots. Inside of Squarespace, again, pretty easy here. You go into settings, you go to SEO, and you turn search engine indexing on. And again, if somebody else hosts your site, just tell them, enable indexing to allow GPT bots, OAI search bots, etc., to crawl your website. Whatever settings are in there, you just want to make sure that whatever can crawl these, okay? And the next thing that you can do to make sure that this is all happening is you're going to want to manually submit your sitemap. And you don't want to skip this either, okay? So a sitemap is a menu you hand to Google and Bing and ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. And really what should happen is your sitemap should live at, yourdomain.com sitemap.xml. So if you plug that into Google, then you'll be able to see what is actually being crawled here. You can also do SIT colon your domain. If you just type that into Google, you'll be able to see what is actually getting crawled right now. And you should make sure that all of your relevant pages, especially your money pages, show up there. Okay. And again, by toggling this setting on inside of your CMS, this should all happen automatically. But you can push the notion there by actually taking a look and seeing, what's actually listed on your sitemap. So that's going to be for normal search, right? Okay. The next thing you're going to want to do is you fix your robots.txt so bots can enter. This is the same exact process here. Again, if you go into your CMS and you just toggle that setting on, this should already be done. But what this is going to do is it's going to welcome all of the crawlers. So if you type in yourdomain.com/robots.txt, so for my old clinic, it's ripplebasecamp.com/robots.txt. If I type that into Google, I'm able to see all of the user agents that are able to crawl this website. And I can see that the Amazon bot can, the Anthropic AI can, the Apple bot can, the ChatGPT user can, the Claude bot, Facebook bot, Google Cloud bot, Meta bot, etc., etc., etc. And if I scroll all the way down, I can see what is disallowed. So you're going to want to type this in and actually see, like, if ChatGPT is disallowed, that means your settings didn't work. So you're going to want to make sure you go back into your CMS and you can see if those things actually work. So that's just a really nice check there. Okay. And then the last thing I recommend to ensure you're being crawled by AI is just doing a quick health check. And this is just going into all of the SEO specific pages that you have. So again, if you're building out money pages, which you should be, a money page, again, if you haven't listened to the previous podcast, is going to be a page that talks about a single service in a location. So for my old clinic, for Ripple, it would be ripplebasecamp.com/Boston/physical therapy. That's going to be one of our money pages for Boston Physical Therapy. We're going to want to do this same process, the, yourdomain.com/robots.txt/sitemap.xml. You're going to want to make sure that everything is allowed on that specific page too. So not only for your full domain, for that specific page. So hopefully you guys haven't hit skip and been like, what the fuck are you talking about, Jeremy? So let me try to break this down into plain English, okay? LLMs and search engines, so ChatGPT, Google are the two big ones, will discover and verify answers through what search engines can crawl and what they can trust. So if your website's CMS is blocking that, then you're not going to show up. That's why you need to have these settings turned on. So if it's on, you're good, you're going to show up. But if you're not, then you're not even playing the game, okay? So again, you need to go into your CMS and you need to figure out if you're actually showing up here. And if you have no idea how to do this stuff and you don't care to, book a free SEO audit with us. I'll include that link in the description of this episode and we can show you if you're showing up. We can show you where you're showing up and we can always obviously do these things. This is part of our SEO process. So the first thing to do to make sure you're showing up in AI is make sure you have this setting turned on. Number two is going to be, this is something that's brand new actually, and we're going to be building blogs and pages that LLMs love to quote, okay? So there's going to be clear answers up at the top of these pages, these blogs, structured sections, and local signals so that you can win the best physical therapy in, your city. So what we want to do is we want to create these Q&A style blog pages because this is what, if you've ever, chatted with ChatGPT before, that it answers back in bulleted style. And when it's trying to if you ask ChatGPT, hey, what's the best physical therapy clinic in Boston, it's going to spit you back a bulleted list. So if your website has pages and blogs that speak to the AI in bulleted list and structured snippets, then it's more likely to crawl that, understand, be able to take in that information and then send it back. So you're more likely to show up in search if your content is pleasing the robots. We're at a time now where we're no longer talking to humans because humans aren't reading your pages, I'm going to be honest with you, but the robots are. So we need to be writing for the robots now versus the actual humans. So the first key to these pages is to always answer first. you're going to want to start with 2 to 3 sentence. That's a direct answer at the top. Let me tell you a story. Just straight up answer that question. That's what ChatGPT is going to rank as this snippet. Okay. So think about if somebody's typing in, do I need a referral for physical therapy in Texas? The first part of this page, your heading, the title of this page should be that question. And then the answer should be within that first paragraph. You should say, nope, Massachusetts is a direct access state. You can see a physical therapist without a doctor referral, but some insurances will want it for reimbursement. Done. You're answering that right up front. Then what you're going to want to make sure you're doing is structuring that page like a Q&A and not a long form essay. And this is a big change. Okay. We've been testing this out with a handful of clinics inside of Patch, and this stuff is working much better inside of the LLMs than what it previously was. So for examples for what these pages could be like, how long does physical therapy take for back pain? What's included in a physical therapy evaluation in Austin? You're going to want to make sure the same setup and structure still applies with some of the old pages that you're building with these new pages. You're going to want to make sure you're using your H1s, H2, and H3s correctly. You're going to want to give a 2 to 5 sentence answer right underneath that question. And this is going to make your page scannable. It's going to be scannable for humans for sure, which is good, but it's going to be digestible and crawlable for AI, which is really what we want. So what actually goes into these Q&A pages? I kind of covered this, right? But let's dive into it a little bit more. That's because this is really the most important thing. You ever see the suggested searches when you go to Google and you start typing? So if you start typing in like best PT and then you start typing out clinic like CLIN, and then it gives you like 9 or 10 like things that it thinks you're going to search. So it's giving you suggestions there. Or when you search like best physical therapist near me, when you see that query on those search results, it'll give you a section called like people also ask. Those right there, those people also ask, those are your topics that you're going to want to build your Q&A content around, and that AI is actually citing. And I think this is the future of all of this stuff too. So this is super important for not only today, but a year from now, 2 years from now. So those are all of your blog and your page topics, are all of these like conversational question-based questions that people might be asking. And then again, you're going to want to answer that on the page. You're going to open with a direct 2 to 3 sentence answer at the very top. You're not throat clearing. There's no story. If someone asks how long does it take physical therapy to cure back pain, your first line should answer that question with most non-surgical back pain plans take 6 to 8 visits over 6 to 10 weeks, or wherever you want to add in there. That's the snippet that ChatGPT and these LLMs are going to lift cleanly. And somebody is asking that inside of ChatGPT, that is what ChatGPT is going to pull. AI loves when you swap paragraphs for lists and tables, because that's what robots parse and humans can scan. So it's going to be a really high authority content. And something that we have to mention here too is because we run local businesses, you'll want these Q&A pages to have some local relevance with them as well. So not only each one, the title of the page is asking that question, the first paragraph is answering that question. You're then giving bulleted points on the answer to that question, providing more value, but then you're going to want to make sure you're looping in some sort of local authority with that as well. So on that page, you could say like, hey, we treat patients in downtown Nashville. We're 5 minutes from the Nissan Stadium, serving Germantown, the Gulch, and East Nashville. So you have the city, the neighborhoods, and a known landmark. That's enough for AI to tag your page as a local answer, which is really what we want. Because, if I'm in Maine and search and the LLM shows me something in Nashville, that's not going to really make sense for me. But I want something that's in Portland, Maine. So if a page has local landmarks inside of Portland, Maine, that's really what we're looking for here. These pages should also, include a lot of the technical stuff. Without diving too deep into that, you're going to want to make sure that there's a FAQ schema markup on there. All your metadata is intact. And if that's gibberish, book a free SEO audit with us. We can tell you about what our SEO service actually is. So these are the Q&A pages. To be honest, this is brand new. We've been testing this out. But again, we've got about a dozen clinics right now testing this out, and it's working really, really well inside of these LLMs. And I do think this is, kind of my theory for the next year or so, is this is what's going to be the most important content. So the blogs that you've been writing beforehand, this is what they should look like now. So, what should you actually publish for a PT clinic? You should start to have, 12 pages that cover things like, what is the best physical therapy clinic in my city and how do I choose? Do I need a referral for physical therapy in Massachusetts? How long does ACL rehab take in Boston, et cetera, et cetera? Those are all of the pages you should be publishing. And, if you get to that 12 mark, mark, this is where we see this authority really be starting to build, and clinics start showing up in ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, et cetera, et cetera. So takeaway here is you don't want to just traditionally blog. You don't want to be writing fluff anymore. You want to be building Q&A pages that answer the exact questions that patients type into search. Because search is changing. People just don't type in physical therapy Boston anymore. They say, what is the best physical therapy clinic in Boston? That's really what people are looking for now. So that's number 2. The content you should be posting should have Q&A style to them. All right. The third thing here to make sure your clinic shows up in AI results is technical SEO, building authority, building domain authority. So the good news with this is if you've been working on SEO over the last few years, the traditional SEO principles still apply for showing up in LLMs, which is great. So good traditional SEO, engine optimization for AI LLMs as well. So, what actually goes into good traditional SEO? If you have no idea, let's, kind of dive into this. This can get super nerdy, so I'll spare you a lot of the details, but usually I tell clinics they need 3 main things here, okay? The first is going to be making sure your sitemap is submitted to Google. So kind of what we talked about in point number 1 of making sure that your website is crawlable, not only by search engines, but also by AI. So the way you can check this is you go into Google Search Console. You should have that set up. You can upload your XML sitemap. This is part of something that we do in month 1 of anybody that works with us for SEOs. That's how important this is. And that's basically your website's table of contents is what your sitemap is, okay? So if you don't submit it, you're just kind of hoping that bots stumble around or Google will eventually find your website and crawl it. That's not the best strategy. We want to be playing offense here. Okay, so you're going to want to make sure your sitemap is submitted to Google and to the robots that are out there. Second thing is you want to build authority with backlinks. One of the easiest ways to do this is getting your clinic listed in as many directories as possible. You obviously have the main ones, right? So your business directory should be listed on Google, but there are other ones out there like Yelp, like Yellow Pages. You should have an Instagram account. You should have a YouTube account. You should have a TikTok account. You should have a LinkedIn account. All of those directories that you have there should have a link that goes back to your website. So if you have you have an Instagram profile, which I'm sure you do, you're going to want to make sure that your URL to your website is on that Instagram page. Something very, very easy to do, but a lot of times people miss this. Other directories that you can be listed in are going to be like MapQuest. There's something called Easy Local. You can also think about like some of the physical therapy specific ones as well. So there's ZocDoc that's out there. You've got WebMD, you've got Health Grades. You're going to want to make sure that your business is listed in as many places as possible. Those are going to be really easy backlinks. You can also go out and you can try to build backlinks as well. One of the things that I did with my clinic Ripple, so we had a really good relationship with a gym that was across the street. And basically I, treated their members. I gave them, 50% off of an evaluation for any member at this gym. Always hooked up the trainers over there. And basically what I asked the owner was, hey, can I write some blogs for your website? He's like, yeah, sure. Like, we're not writing blogs, no problem. And, with the blogs that I wrote there, I made sure that those blogs linked back to our website. So the blogs that I wrote linked back to ripplebasecamp.com. That helped me start to build some authority. And the more places that linked back to our website, the more authority we started to build. That's what a backlink is. So if you win something like, Best of Boston, or if you can get a news article, if you can get your clinic featured in some of the local blogs that are out there, as many places of websites that link back to your website is going to be building some of that authority. So if you have partners in the area, use that strategy. That's a really easy way to build some authority. And then the third thing you can do to build this authority is to make sure your money pages are strong. So again, a money page is a location and service page, and these should be all for your core services. So you should have ACL rehab page, you should have a back pain page, a pelvic floor page, and again, I audit too many websites and I see these pages, which is awesome, but these pages just have like 1 or 2 paragraphs on there, and that's kind of it. There's no authority built to that page. If you go to a page and you're like, that really didn't do anything for me, then that's not doing anything for you on the authority side of things. So you're going to want to make sure this is a page that people are going to actually find value with. You're going to want to make sure you're adding FAQs, embed a YouTube video, include a map of where your clinic is located. You're going to want to make sure that there's internal linking to other blogs and pages on your your website. That depth tells both people and robots that this page has authority. So that's what Google, that's what ChatGPT, that's what Perplexity, that's what humans are looking for these pages. So if you're doing these three things, you're making sure your sitemap is loaded to the LLMs and to Google, you're creating backlinks, and you're adding strong money pages, your site is going to go from just another clinic that's out there that's kind of buried on, some of those back pages, page 5, page 10, whatever it might be, and it's going to turn into one that AI actually cites, which is really what we're looking for here. Again, if this feels overwhelming for you, please just book a free SEO audit with us. We'll tell you if your site is set up right, and if not, we'll fix it inside of our SEO program. So here's a bottom line with showing up in AI. I think that this is the future, and I think this is just what we need to be doing. And I think if you are a clinic owner and you want to get more organic leads coming in the door, then you need to be doing this. And if you want your clinic to be showing up a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you need to start doing this stuff today. I've said this before. I think this is really good news for some of these smaller clinics, for these cash-based clinics, because big hospital systems and these big chain clinics, they're going to be very slow to adapt to this stuff. They move like dinosaurs. You all know that. That means that you, as a small independent and ideally hungry clinic owner, you have a huge chance to take advantage of this stuff right now. I know it's confusing, crawler, schema, backlinks, it's all a lot. That's why the best place to start is with our free SEO audit. We'll tell you if your site is ready for the new world, and if it's not, what you can be doing in order to fix it. So head on over to that link in the description, grab your free audit, and do these three things to make sure that you're showing up in LLMs. Make sure that you are actually submitting your website to the LLMs. Make sure your content is in Q&A style, and make sure your website has domain authority. Hopefully this is helpful. Please reach out if you guys have any questions. Talk to you next week.